Good evening, everyone. Happy election night. We are live in Auburn overlooking Lewiston. Both of these cities will have to decide tonight whether they want to become one.
Yeah, this is just one of the questions that's affecting a lot of towns across our state, a lot of referendum questions as well. We will certainly tell you about all of those, and we'll also talk about first-time voters and what it's like for the people who first-time voted in the last election, what they think about politics now that they've seen how this whole thing shaped out a little bit.
Speaking of politicians, we're kind of talking to a few of them tonight.
Yeah, we want to find out what advice they would give to people who maybe want to get into politics and whether they're rethinking why they did this in the first place.
This is News Center now.
Hello everybody and welcome to a special Election Day edition of News Center Now. I'm Lee Goldberg.
And I'm Amanda Hill. Today, people all over the state are telling their government officials how they want to shape their future because, as you said, today is Election Day.
All right, so right now we are on the beautiful Auburn River Walk. It's just gorgeous. You can see behind us right now. John blended with some beautiful lighting here. On the other side of the river is Lewiston, and that's a big deal because the Twin Cities of Androscoggin have a very big decision that they are making today.
Yeah, Christina Rex is going to tell us about that merger question in a moment. And then later on Now, Chris Costa will tell us about a statewide question one, the casino referendum.
Don Kerrigan will explain the Medicaid expansion issue, which is a statewide question two. Meanwhile, Tennyson Coleman is live in Bangor, keeping an eye on voter turnout. But we'll start with why we are actually here in Lewiston, Auburn tonight.
Yeah, so voters in Lewiston and in Auburn have to answer this one question. Do you approve the Charter and Consolidation Agreement as recommended by the Lewiston-Auburn Joint Charter Commission?
Christina Rex is live at Da Vinci's in Lewiston tonight, where one LA group will be meeting later on tonight as those results come in. Hey, K-Rex.
Hey, Lee and Amanda. So I just spoke with someone from the pro-merger camp just minutes ago, and he said that just hours before they find out the results, they're staying really grounded and realistic about the reality of whether or not this merger will actually pass. Now, that's because they say very few mergers across the country have ever passed. If this merger doesn't go through today, they say they'll take a break from it for a while, but won't give up on the dream long term. For those who want the merger, they say it's about combining the resources of Lewiston and Auburn to make a more vibrant community where young people might want to move and stay long term. But the merged Lewiston-Auburn would be Maine's second largest city, just behind Portland, a few thousand people behind Portland if these cities were to merge. Those opposed to the merger, though, say that it's a waste of money to merge and could destroy the city's separate histories.
I want to raise a family here, and I don't want my kids leaving right after high school. I want them to find the community that they're living in to be a place where they want to stay. And without opportunity, without a vibrant downtown life, that's hard. And that's the reason why I moved away after college and came back, is because I couldn't find that opportunity here in town.
And we also don't understand how, by eliminating an imaginary line across the Androscoggin River, that somehow makes businesses, this area, more attractive to businesses.
Now, the One LA camp, which is the pro-merger camp, will be having a gathering here at Da Vinci's in Lewiston in just about an hour. There's also a gathering for those who oppose the merger. They're going to be right across the river in Auburn, and we'll head over there and bring you some live shots from there as well. Lee and Amanda?
All right, Christina, thank you very much. So voters are making their voices heard today on things like casinos and Medicaid, but this is not an election where we're going for our next president.
That usually affects voter turnout, of course. So the question is the state expecting a big turnout this year? Let's head to Tennyson Coleman, who is outside one of the polling places in Bangor. Hey, Tennyson.
Hey, how's it going? I'm actually downtown here in Bangor, and the Maine Secretary of State, Matt Dunlap, says to expect a low to moderate turnout at the polls today. And we wanted to figure out why that was the case, at least here in Bangor. So I'm downtown again, and I asked people how they feel about this election. The response was definitely not as passionate as last year's presidential election, in which Maine had over 70% voter turnout. Some are voting today just simply because they feel it's their civic duty. Others say they won't show up to the polls because the issues just aren't important enough to them. Are you planning on voting, or did you vote today?
I haven't voted yet. I haven't had a chance.
Gotcha. Are you planning on it?
Yes,
Okay.
after work. My senior in high school history teacher, because he made us promise always to vote. So that's one reason why I vote for Mr. Halstead. I also feel it's important to vote because it's my voice. And it's the only way I'm going to tell anybody else how I'm feeling about some of the issues that are out there.
Are you planning on voting today?
Yes. Because if I don't vote, I don't feel like I have a say.
Are you planning on voting today?
I'm not 100% sure yet.
Why not?
School, bills, the works. It's hard to say because I really haven't paid attention to look at the issues that are being presented.
Do you know about the election today?
I do know about the election, for sure. And my opinion on it, I don't think I'm going to vote. My opinion, I don't think that one Maine vote may count.
Well, there you have it. As you can see, a mixed bag of responses. Now, Dunlap did say that we could expect 20 to 30% voter turnout, which is fairly decent for an off year. Again, we won't really know until voting's all said and done, so we'll have to wait for those numbers when they come in. Guys?
All right, Tennyson Coleman live in Bangor tonight. Thank you very much. Still to come on Now.
It's definitely an adult thing to do finally, to just vote.
Politics in America is becoming more polarizing. Does that deter the youngest generation of voters?
And this year's casino referendum question is one of the most divisive. We talked to the businessman behind the proposal right after the break.
And welcome back to our Election Day special live from Lewiston, Auburn, everybody.
Okay, the question is, does Maine need another casino? Well, a businessman thinks York County is the perfect location for a gaming establishment.
And voters get to have their say today. This is question 1. Do you want to allow a certain company to operate table games and/or slot machines in York County, subject to state and local approval, with part of the profits going to the specific programs described in the initiative?
All right, Chris Costa is standing by with the man behind this initiative, Sean Scott. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Lee and Amanda. Yep, that's right. I'm here with Sean. He's the backer and the businessman behind Yes on One, Progress for Maine. Sean, thank you so much for joining us. You were just meeting with some supporters in Old Orchard Beach. What was your message to them?
Well, voting yes on question 1 is all about bringing 2,100 new jobs to Maine and $45 million in new tax revenue. That's tax revenue that goes to our schools and property tax relief. As well as that, this is about a $200 million investment coming to Maine. In addition, it'll bring 2,700 new jobs just during the construction phase alone.
You've been under a lot of scrutiny, not only because of the 2003 Bangor Casino, which you sold, but how could you tell people to trust you that you won't do that with this one?
Well, like I've said before, my family and I have been investing and spending time in Maine for nearly 20 years. We talked about this project coming to southern Maine even back in '03 and even before that. So it's something we've wanted to do for a long time, and we think it's a great project now, especially in light of the Boston Resort soon to open next year, or within about a year and a half. And that's going to take a lot of money, a lot of jobs out of the state that we can keep right here in Maine.
That study that you're talking about with the jobs, the benefits are very well enumerated, spelled out in the question language of where the monies would go. Is there one of those in particular that you see the most beneficial?
Well, I think money for the schools and money for tax relief, especially property tax relief, is a great cause. And that's where a big chunk of this money goes.
Gotcha. What did you think about the Ethics Commission's findings? Do you think that will impact people's choice to vote yes on this?
Well, it's important to take note that they voted 5-0 that Capital 7, the company that will build and develop this project and apply for the license, was at no fault. So that was done just the other day at the commission.
Gotcha. Sean, we actually spoke with Roy Leonardson, who's with the No on One campaign, about the same question, about the Ethics Committee's finding. Here's what he had to say.
I think the important thing for me is that the process worked. Legislators held them accountable. The Ethics Commission held them accountable. You know, the governor came out against it. Most of the legislature came out against it. Everybody, 18 people running for governor came out against it. Every single newspaper in the state editorial board, every single paper came out against it. So I think you saw sort of democracy work. And I know a lot of people felt threatened that the referendum process was being undermined. I have a lot more faith in our institutions after this, the press, government, and the voters. So I feel pretty good about it overall.
We will be keeping our eyes and ears on this question as the night goes forward and as the votes come in. Mr. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you later. And Lee and Amanda, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Chris, thanks so much. Still to come on Now.
If you're thinking of being a public servant, do it for the right reason. Don't do it for the headlines. Don't do it because you got an ego.
At all levels of Maine government, we hear from elected leaders as they give their advice for anyone who wants to get into the race.
And the temperatures are going to be on a downward slide. Will they bounce back anytime soon? Keith is inside. We're outside. Coming back with the forecast.
Welcome back to our special Election Day coverage on the Riverwalk in Auburn. Now, there's no question the 2016 presidential election was kind of a contentious one. For tens of millions of voters, this was their first presidential election where they actually had a say.
Yeah, so News Center's Christina Rex went out and talked to two Maine college students, one from Thomas College in Waterville and one from the University of Southern Maine, to see how they're feeling now, 1 year after their first ever vote.
It's definitely an adult thing to do finally, to just vote, but it definitely made it interesting with last year's election.
I think if it wasn't a presidential election, I wouldn't have been as excited to go vote, but it was a really exciting race.
It's an American rite of passage. College students Katie Letelier and Michael Ring cast their ballots for the very first time in one of the most polarizing elections in our nation's history.
I mean, both of the candidates were both very different. And there's definitely a line drawn in the sand.
According to the Pew Research Center, 34 million millennials voted in November 2016, putting Katie and Michael in the second largest generational group of voters in that election.
I mean, it was like the first time I felt comfortable talking politics with people because, you know, I felt like I actually had a say. You know.
Just because you could actually, you know, check off a ballot.
Yeah, I could actually vote, so I felt like my opinion mattered. I mean, I actually kept up with what was going on.
Keeping up with what was going on, Katie and Michael say, was important for them. In fact, data shows that for 2016 election info, younger Americans read more national newspapers, like the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, than older voters.
I definitely saw myself watching the news more and reading a lot more and getting myself a little bit more politically informed.
But what about actually casting that vote? How did these two first-timers come to their decisions?
I decided I didn't want to pledge my allegiance towards a party since I am, you know, a fairly young voter.
Michael says he kept his options open, and like 44% of millennials, he identified as independent. He even changed his mind 4 days before the election. But Katie never swayed. But nothing that you watched in the news or watched the debates or anything was going to change your mind?
No, nothing could change my mind in my vote, no.
With the negativity that surrounds national politics, and the referendums that get overturned here at home, we talked to those two, Katie and Michael, to see if they were frustrated with the way that the first year went after they voted for the first time.
Right, and both of them actually said no. They do still have faith in the system, which is good, and they were both planning on voting today, so that's also good news because every vote counts. Hey, how do you like that wind that's kicking up out here,
I'd like to vote for less wind off the water. I'd like to vote for warmth. I'd like to vote for Keith Carson to be as cold as we are right now. What's up, Casey?
It's a rare reversal, right? Guys, I'm usually out in the storm, and there's plenty of that to come this winter. Hopefully you guys are warm enough. Yeah, you know, there's a little bit of snow shower activity not far away from where you're at the moment, and you can see some snow mixing with rain along the immediate coastline, even across parts of down east. Interesting to get reports here. Just got a call from a guy in Belfast who said he's mixing with sleet here, so I assume that's the same in Ellsworth through Southwest Harbor into Acadia. Meanwhile, over southern Maine, it's just warm enough that it's been rain, but out towards Sebago, some snow showers in there. A change in the computer model, guys. guidance, obviously, we weren't expecting precipitation very much tonight. Most of this will miss us, but we're getting just the northern edge of it. So look for a few more snow showers through tonight, particularly just away from the immediate coast. Current temperatures in the low 40s along the coastline. That doesn't obviously facilitate much in the way of snow, but in the upper 30s, good enough to give us wet snowflakes and a little bit of sleet across the interior. So again, that continues through the rest of the first half of tonight, and then we clear out tomorrow morning, and tomorrow's a nice bright day, but temperatures are cool. We're in the 40s despite the sunshine. Same deal again on Thursday. We start very chilly. We try to warm up, but by Thursday afternoon through Thursday evening, an Arctic cold front will come through, and it will be a real punch of very cold air on Thursday evening. Some snow squalls with it. That could actually accumulate to an inch or so in some of the higher terrain and up across northern Maine on Thursday night into Friday morning. So accumulating snow, not a lot, but something. That's a big change for a lot of us. That again, Thursday night, Friday. Bitterly cold on Saturday and Sunday morning, where many of us will be in the low teens, even some single digits, I think, possible in some of the favored locations. The coastline should be in the mid-teens on Saturday morning and Sunday morning, record threatening at least cold there, and then probably cold November rain on Monday, and inland locations could be a mix. So Amanda and Lee, obviously our pattern changing in a big way, much more wintry here in the next 7 days.
How comforting is it to hear him say it's snowing not too far from us?
I was also happy to hear him say cold November rain, because that's a Guns N' Roses song.
Oh,
so,
okay. Well, there's that.
He's pretty hip.
All right. One of the biggest conversations right now in politics is healthcare. And today, Mainers got to decide whether they wanted the state and the federal government to cover more Mainers.
Yeah, so this is statewide question ballot number 2. Question number 2 on the ballot. Voters are deciding today if they want Maine to expand the Medicaid program to an estimated 70 to 80,000 people who can't currently have it right now. News Center's Don Kerrigan standing by in Falmouth and joins us now live. Don, this is certainly a topic we have talked about many times before.
Absolutely, Lee, many times to say the least. We're at the polling place at Falmouth High School, surprisingly busy tonight. You know, Medicaid expansion has been talked about over and over again in Augusta over the last 5 to 6 years. The legislature has passed it 5 times, and each time Governor LePage has vetoed it. The expansion would provide free Medicaid health coverage to tens of thousands of Mainers between the ages of 18 and 65, incomes under 138% of the federal poverty level. Now, the federal government would pay the biggest share of the cost of that, hundreds of millions of dollars, supporters say, but Maine taxpayers would also have to pay some of it. And now opponents say the state cannot afford that extra expense, but supporters say thousands of people need the help.
Tens of thousands of people, and I think sometimes this gets lost, do not currently have options, can't qualify for subsidies in the marketplace, and can't qualify for Medicaid. And these are folks who can least afford to buy insurance. And so this is going to address that.
We still have to come up with a large amount of state taxpayer funded dollars, and I don't know where it's going to come from. It is going to be fiscally devastating to the state of Maine, and all these words saying it's free, it's not free. We are going to pay.
As you can tell, pretty passionate arguments on both sides. Even many opponents say they expect this is going to pass today. And if that happens, then this issue is likely to result in just another big debate in the legislature this winter. We'll have more on News Center at 6. Lee and Amanda, back to you.
All right, Don Kerrigan live in Falmouth. Thank you very much. Voters in Portland today will have a chance to have their voices heard on whether or not, or actually how much, rent they feel like paying.
Right. To put this into perspective, more than half the population of Portland is renters. So Vivian Lee is live right outside of Portland City Hall. She joins us now. Hey, Viv.
Hi, guys. Question 1 would cap the amount that certain Question 1 would cap the amount that certain landlords could increase their rent each year. And the proposal would also make it more difficult for landlords to evict problem tenants, something landlords say is illegal and would make conditions unsafe for their renters. Now, supporters say a spike in housing developments designed to attract more affluent renters is pushing out low and middle income residents. Landlords say the ordinance would curb that development, which is needed to drive those rents down. They say it would also be bad for renters because it will discourage landlords from investing and upgrading their properties. And coming up at 5:30, we'll hear from both sides of the issue, the organizers that have been pushing for and against this referendum. And voters are also voting on another question today on the municipal ballot, and it would allow neighbors living within 500 feet of a zoning change to be able to stop that development through a petition. And of course, the polls stay open until 8 o'clock. Reporting live from Portland City Hall, back to you guys. And I have to say, it is warm out here in Portland.
All right, thank you, Viv. Good for you. All right, after the break, we're going to talk to some politicians, some pretty famous ones, about why would you ever run for public office. That's after the break.
I would not do it again because it's too vile. It's too nasty. No, I would not put my family through this again. In fact, no way whatsoever.
Now, that was Governor LePage talking to me last March, but it really got us thinking, why do people decide to run for public office?
That's a question we took to a town councilor, a mayor, obviously the governor, and a member of the U.S. Congress to try to get some perspective.
As Truman said, if you want a friend in politics, get a dog.
My littlest one was 6 months old and she's in a grocery cart and I'm in the middle of Hannaford and an older woman came up to me and, you know, like laid into me over some tax issues and my infant starts to sob.
Well, the first job I ever ran for was tax assessor in my hometown and I did it because nobody else wanted it.
That's why I'm not very popular with Democrats or Republicans, because I don't play games. Everything's got to stand on its own merits.
We need that younger generation involved in some of these choices because in reality, they're the ones that are going to have the most impact from some of the decisions and choices that we make now.
No, it is very difficult at the federal level. Work locally. You know, there's the think globally, work locally, I think is the kind of mantra we need to hang on to these days.
If you're thinking of being a public servant, do it for the right reason. Don't do it for the headlines. Don't do it because you got an ego, and don't do it for one issue. If you're going to do it, understand what you're getting into and do it for the right reasons.
So just be exactly who you are. Sometimes people will come up to you and say, you know what, I don't always agree with you, but you're honest and you fight for the things I care about, and that's what I want. So be honest, tell the truth, be just who you are.
All right, that's it for us here on the Riverwalk. Thank you for joining us in Auburn tonight.
Election coverage all throughout the night, and News Center at 5:30 starts right now.